Switzerland rarely makes front-page headlines. It doesn't command the kind of attention that superpowers do, and yet its economy functions like a fortress, resistant to crisis, built on centuries of neutrality, and quietly trusted by the global elite. At the core of that strength lies something economists call a triple surplus: a fiscal surplus, a trade surplus, and consistent capital inflows. Few nations can claim even one of those. Switzerland maintains all three, year after year. This rare configuration means the country runs a government budget in the black, sells more to the world than it imports, and attracts more wealth than it sends out. It's not about explosive growth or flashy industries. It's about predictability. In a world addicted to speed, Switzerland is addicted to stability, and investors know it. Welcome to Geo Capitalist, where we decode global wealth, one power shift at a time. So today, we're breaking it all down. How Switzerland quietly became the world's most powerful neutral economy. What really happened behind the scenes? What's coming next? And more importantly, why is no one talking about it? So subscribe to the channel, and let's get into it. The Swiss franc, backed by careful monetary discipline, is among the world's most trusted currencies. Even in global turmoil, capital quietly moves towards Zurich and Geneva, not away from them. This system didn't appear overnight. It was engineered, with intention, isolation, and a laser focus on sovereignty. Switzerland doesn't try to compete with larger economies on size. It competes on trust. And as we'll see, that trust is now being tested, not by war, but by interest rates, trade realignments, and a rising multipolar world. Let's move into the system that made it possible: banking. Swiss banking is often romanticized: secret accounts, alpine vaults, and discreet service for billionaires. But the reality, especially post-2008 and post-Credit Suisse, is far more complex. For over a century, Switzerland's financial system flourished under its trademark banking secrecy laws. It became a haven, not just for the wealthy, but for corporations, governments, and those needing a neutral place to store capital. At one point, Swiss banks managed nearly a third of the world's offshore wealth, but under increasing international pressure, especially from the US, those walls began to erode. Transparency agreements, FATCA, and a global push against financial opacity forced Swiss banks to disclose more and conceal less. Then came the crisis. Credit Suisse, once one of the two pillars of Swiss banking, collapsed in 2023, triggering a government-backed rescue and merger with UBS. It wasn't just a domestic event. It shook global confidence in a symbol that had long seemed untouchable. And while UBS emerged as the largest wealth manager in the world, Switzerland's image took a hit. But perhaps, more importantly, Asia took notice. In Singapore, Hong Kong, and even the UAE, financial centers began positioning themselves as the new Switzerland. Capital that once flowed instinctively to Zurich now weighs its options. The Swiss banking myth isn't dead, but it's evolving. And as the nation tightens its grip on regulation and trust, it must also confront a less romantic challenge: interest rates. In June 2025, the Swiss National Bank cut interest rates to 0%. For most countries, that would barely register. But for Switzerland, it was a seismic move. This is a nation known for restraint, for slow, calculated adjustments. So why the sudden shift? The SNB's decision reflected growing deflationary pressure and a slowing export sector. But it also signaled something deeper, a turning point in the Swiss financial model. For decades, Switzerland had benefited from a steady influx of capital. Its strong franc and low inflation made it ideal for long-term storage of wealth. But 0% interest creates a new kind of pressure, especially for banks. With shrinking margins, Swiss banks are now caught in a bind. Raise lending costs to maintain profitability, or lose ground to more aggressive international competitors. This is uncharted territory. For the first time in decades, the fortress economy must find ways to maintain trust and returns without relying on ultra-conservative rate policies. And in doing so, it may have to experiment, cautiously of course, with risk. But Switzerland's real challenge isn't just internal. As U.S. tariffs rise and global alliances shift, Switzerland's famously neutral trade position is being forced in a new direction, toward Europe. Switzerland has long walked a diplomatic tightrope, economically intertwined with the European Union, yet never a member. It's part of the Schengen zone. It participates in key trade agreements. But it's maintained a degree of autonomy that few other European nations can claim. That delicate balance, however, is shifting. Earlier this year, after a fresh round of tariffs imposed by the Trump administration on EU-aligned economies, Switzerland found itself exposed and reconsidering its position. For the first time in history, the Swiss finance minister was invited to attend ECOFIN, the EU's powerful economic and financial council. This wasn't symbolic. It was strategic. Quietly, Switzerland is aligning more closely with Brussels, not because it wants to, but because the global economic map is forcing it to. With the U.S. growing more protectionist and China forming its own trade blocs, Europe remains Switzerland's largest customer and partner. Geographic logic is merging with political logic. The Swiss government knows that its neutrality only works when the surrounding powers trust it. So instead of clinging to independence as a virtue, it's now treating neutrality as a strategy, adapting its economic alliances to ensure long-term relevance. That flexibility is part of what makes the Swiss system so resilient. But it's not just about diplomacy. The real foundation of Switzerland's economic power is built deep beneath the Alps, in the form of infrastructure. When people think of economic power, they think of factories, ports, and skyscrapers. But Switzerland's power isn't obvious. It's engineered. Beneath its mountains lie some of the most advanced infrastructure systems in the world, from data vaults to transport tunnels. The Gotthard Base Tunnel, the longest and deepest railway tunnel on Earth, connects northern and southern Europe with Swiss precision. But it's more than a marvel of engineering. It's a signal to the world. Switzerland doesn't build for headlines. It builds for leverage. This mindset extends beyond transport. Switzerland ranks at the top of the Global Innovation Index year after year, driven by its biotech sector, advanced robotics, and precision manufacturing. Multinational giants like Roche, Novartis, and ABB all call Switzerland home, not for low costs, but for reliability, talent, and protection of intellectual property. In short, Switzerland doesn't sell speed. It sells trust, efficiency, and long-term strategy. This quiet innovation engine gives the Swiss economy a form of soft power. It's not about dominance. It's about being indispensable. Whether it's pharmaceuticals during a health crisis or tech in a supply chain war, Switzerland is always positioned just right. It never has to scream for attention. Its power is embedded in infrastructure, in policy, and increasingly in energy. Let's move into a topic most overlooked: how Switzerland is preparing for a future beyond oil and gas, with the same quiet confidence that built its banks. Switzerland doesn't posture about climate policy. It builds systems that quietly work. Nearly 60% of its electricity comes from hydropower. It's one of the few developed nations that already operates on a largely renewable grid. While global headlines fixate on dramatic pledges and summit speeches, Switzerland moves forward, one law at a time. The 2021 revision of its CO2 Act set the tone. Gradually reduce emissions, improve energy efficiency, and maintain self-sufficiency without drama. In May 2023, Swiss voters approved the new Climate and Innovation Act, a plan to reach net zero by 2050 using targeted incentives, not sweeping bans. It's classic Swiss, pragmatic, decentralized, and quietly effective. But this isn't just environmental policy, it's economic strategy. Energy independence means less reliance on imported fossil fuels, especially from geopolitically volatile regions. It means cost stability for Swiss industries, resilience in times of crisis, and leverage in EU negotiations. In fact, many observers believe that Switzerland's clean energy grid is a hidden factor behind its consistent trade surplus. Lower volatility, fewer shocks, and a reputation for reliability. While the world debates green transitions, Switzerland is already halfway there, without making it a political spectacle. But this calm exterior belies a deeper tension. What happens when global conflicts start to test the very neutrality that defines the Swiss model? Neutrality is Switzerland's defining brand and its greatest diplomatic tool. But in recent years, that neutrality has come under pressure like never before. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, the global community expected Switzerland to stand apart, as it always had. But for the first time in modern history, the Swiss government froze Russian assets and aligned with EU sanctions. It shocked traditionalists and raised a difficult question: is Switzerland still truly neutral? Supporters argue that neutrality doesn't mean silence, it means sovereignty, the ability to choose, not abstain. But critics say the move marked a departure from decades of consistency. Whatever the interpretation, one thing is clear: Switzerland is adapting its neutrality to a more complex world. No longer a bystander, it's becoming a strategic mediator, applying pressure when needed, holding space when possible, and always guarding its own interests. This flexibility is now central to its soft power. Switzerland hosts more than 250 international organizations, including the Red Cross and World Trade Organization. It's where diplomacy happens when everything else fails. But even that role is being challenged by a multipolar world, where emerging powers are building their own institutions. Can Switzerland remain the world's neutral hub in an age of fragmentation? The answer may lie not in its past, but in its next move. And that brings us to the final question: what is Switzerland really preparing for? Switzerland doesn't try to predict the future, it prepares for it. From zero-rate environments to global sanctions, from AI regulation to trade corridors, the country's real strength lies in its strategic consistency. It doesn't chase influence, it earns leverage, and that's what makes it one of the most quietly powerful economies on the planet. As the world fractures into new alliances, BRICS, EU, Indo-Pacific coalitions, Switzerland is engineering its next chapter: closer EU trade, deeper fintech leadership, tighter energy independence, and renewed diplomatic relevance. The global elite still trust Zurich. Global innovators still relocate to Lausanne. Even in the era of algorithmic trading and tokenized finance, Switzerland's human-scale decision-making gives it a kind of geopolitical gravity, silent, steady, and hard to replace. The question is not whether Switzerland will stay neutral. The real question is, will neutrality become the most valuable power in a world that's increasingly defined by sides? Switzerland may never command armies or dominate airwaves, but in the silence of its tunnels, in the precision of its policies, and in the trust of its institutions, It holds something more rare: quiet control. And that control may be the most underrated force in the global economy today. If you found this breakdown valuable, watch our next video. It connects directly to what's unfolding. And don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us decode these global shifts without compromise. Let us know in the comments, is Musk going global or going rogue? Either way, the world is watching. And there you have it. This was how Switzerland became the world's most powerful neutral economy. And that's all for today's video. Until the next. Stay sharp, stay curious, and stay global. This is Geo Capitalist, decoding global wealth, one power shift at a time. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.